We are thrilled to welcome Dani Robertson, a leading voice in dark sky advocacy and conservation. As the dark sky officer for Erie National Park and the areas of outstanding natural beauty, Dani works tirelessly to protect the night and inspire others to reconnect with the stars. Originally from Greater Manchester, she discovered her passion for the night sky after moving to the Welsh countryside, a journey that has guided both her work and her writing. Dani was honored with Dark Skies International's 2022 Dark Sky Defender Award for her outstanding efforts, and her debut book, All Throughout the Night, was named one of Forbes' best new books on science in 2024. She's now turning her gaze to nocturnal world once more with her upcoming book, Creatures of Darkness, coming on October 23rd. Now, without further ado, I'm going to hand it on over to Dani and let's get started.
Thanks so much, Kelly. I wish I had your enthusiasm and pep. So good. I'm gonna share my screen, hopefully, and do press the right button. There we go. So, um, yeah, I'm gonna talk about fear and darkness, seeing as it's October and it's spooky season. I guess that's a pretty good time to start talking about fear and darkness. So, as Callie said, I am in Wales. I did not think about putting a map up, which I probably should have to show you where I am, seeing as this is quite an international audience. But Cymru is the name of the country in it's Wales, which is in the United Kingdom. We're a very proud country, our own language. We have a dragon on the flag. Very proud of that too. So yeah, I'm flying the flag for Welsh dark skies. And I just wanted to explore this topic with some like-minded darkness lovers and discuss like where the fear of darkness comes from and how we can challenge that and challenge those perceptions of people, because that's one of the it's the first challenge you come up against with people when you're out doing night sky advocacy. So nyctophobia is the official term for fear of the dark or a fear of the night. It is sometimes also referred to as scotophobia. And I think it's really important because I assume that most of us on this call are very, very comfortable with darkness. A lot of us will have astronomy backgrounds and will be so familiar with darkness and getting out there. But this is a real fear for people. So in our advocacy, we have to be so careful not to, not to belittle people, not that any of us would, but not to make people feel silly for that fear because it's a genuine fear. And once upon a time, I was scared of the dark myself. Um, and I can remember being quite a child, being very, very young. I was quite scared of the dark, but my sister was absolutely terrified of it. She had to sleep with a light on. We shared a room as well, so that led to lots of arguments and family disputes. But for her, it was a real gripping, like crushing fear. So it's about trying to challenge that perception of darkness with people and trying to sit with them with darkness and trying to get to the bottom of what it is that they are actually fearful of, because a lot of us have this fear of darkness from being young, from being in a dark bedroom left on our own. Perhaps we've got a nightlight left on, and then some people it just never ever leaves them. And also I think more and more adults are becoming scared of the dark because darkness is just ceasing to exist in so many places. So many of us now just don't get to experience darkness. So when they do experience darkness for the first time, whether they come to like a dark location like Eryri in Wales, if it's a proper dark site and they've come from a city or a town, sometimes that can be too overwhelming for them. So I just wanted to talk about street lighting in first of all, because when people are scared of the dark and when people where people live, we have tried to banish the darkness, obviously, by putting street lights everywhere. And it always reminds me, street lights, of being young. And I was quite lucky. I'm going to show my age now, but I was the generation that kind of straddled like smartphones and being still allowed left to roam out in the wild. Our parents didn't know where we were, but what we were always told was to be back before the street lights came on. So we didn't have mobile phones, we didn't have watches, we didn't know what time it was. But I knew that when the street lights came on, I better be running home because if I was not home before the street lights on my street came on, I would be getting my butt kicked. So maybe I had a fear of streetlights and not the dark, thinking about it. But no, the I can remember the fear of being a kid and thinking, oh, it's getting really dark now, the streetlights are going to come on, and having to run home. And it was that fear that if it got dark before we got home, something terrible was going to happen. And I don't ever remember like my parents instilling a fear into me that like something bad is going to happen to you in the dark. But it's kind of is there, that threat, isn't it? So I think it's really interesting that we have put all this pressure, or we think that we can solve all the issues of darkness with street lighting. But I found this really interesting study. I think it was in 2019 by the Office of National Statistics. And they found that 1 in 7 men and 1 in 2 women walking alone after dark on a quiet street, on a street lit street though, felt unsafe. And that's despite the presence of lighting being there. And I was quite surprised actually at how many men still felt fearful as well, if I'm being very honest. And then they changed that question to ask how they felt if they would have to walk through a dark park, like an urban park area. And that figure rose to 4 in 5 women, which, that's a lot of women to feel very unsafe. And a lot of the time, when anything bad happens to women, um, the knee-jerk reaction is to put more lighting out as well. It's like, well, did they walk on street lit roads? Did they keep to lit roads? Did they keep to lit paths? They shouldn't be out at night. And I just have to ask that question of people all the time, is like, well, is a street light actually going to save me? So when I talk to people about darkness and I try and challenge those perceptions of darkness, the first thing I ask them is, what do you think is going to happen to you in the dark? What do you think is out there? Um, a lot of the time, it's our own fault as well. People do love to watch horror films. I don't like horror films. I won't watch horror films, or anything remotely scary because my imagination is far too good. And if I'm alone working, which I am quite a lot in the darkness, I know my imagination will get the better of me. So I'm not allowed to watch any sort of horror films. But there is this almost like we like to be scared, and we've almost scared ourselves and we've convinced ourselves that there is things out there in the dark. Um, my job as a dark skies officer, I'm out on my own all the time at night. And when I tell people what I do, one of the first things they say, they're generally quite shocked and they say, well, how can you do that? And how can you go out on your own at night? And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, well, why would you go out at night on your own? It's not safe. And I have to say, oh, why is it not safe? And they can't ever bring themselves to get to the point where, darkness isn't what's going to hurt me. What they want to say is sadly, it's the threat of violence that's out there. So as a woman on my own at night, I'm at risk because of things that might be out there, or men at night, who could be there wanting to do me harm. And that's a really, really sad thing. But I feel like darkness is this word, if we've given darkness is being like used to cover up the real issue, which is that there are societal issues. And unfortunately, light is not going to save society. It's not going to change those societal issues. And we are gaslighting women at the end of the day. Streetlights aren't going to keep me safe. If someone wants to attack me when I'm out and about, a streetlight and its cone of light is not going to keep me safe. I can go and stand under a streetlight, but if I'm going to get attacked, I'm going to get attacked. So it's quite a sobering thought, but we can't keep telling people that streetlit environments are safe, because they're not. The perception of safety and the feeling of safety and actual safety are two very, very different things. So to tell women that they're safer, or vulnerable people in society that they are safer by walking through street-lit streets, when that's not actually scientifically been proven, there's no scientific evidence to suggest that that is the case. We shouldn't be doing that. We shouldn't be telling people that there are issues we need to deal with that go a lot further than streetlights could ever touch. I think it's really important. This picture is supposed to hurt your eyes on purpose, because a group of people who are rarely ever thought about when it comes to lighting and lighting environments well is people with disabilities, especially people with visual impairments. So I wear glasses, and driving at night, I get all those horrible, I think it's called an astigmatism. I always get the wrong one. But lighting and lighting that's done badly, lights that are too bright and are too powerful, are really, really disorientating for people who have got visual impairments or are disabled. So we need to really start designing our streets better, our lighting better, and to start thinking about the most vulnerable people in our societies who still need to get around at night. They deserve access to the night as well, and to think about how we can light things better for them. I have this photo of Kerem. Some of you may know Kerem already. He's another dark sky advocate, and he has his company Dark Source, so he's a lighting designer. And I took this photo because this is a LED street light. It's in one of my villages that I is in my dark sky reserve. And you can see like it's really bright white light. But you can see it's so bright and white that you can barely see Kerem. And light does this really weird thing where the brighter the whiter the light is, the stronger it is, the darker everything else around it seems. So I always use this photo to show people that street lighting is not effective in its current state in a lot of places. There's a lot of bad design, and we really need to design our lighting better. Um, it also just goes to show like how it actually attributes to things being more unsafe because there are such deep areas of shadow, and because our eyes don't work so well going between a brightly lit area to a darker area. How people can hide, or there might be things going on down there that you can't see. So getting light right and designing it better in the first place is much better for everybody because light does move in mysterious ways, doesn't it? And we think we're doing the right thing, but not always. So my advice to people is if they want to do advocacy and they want to go out, is to try and challenge people's perception of darkness, try and sit with them and ask them like, what are your feelings? Why are you scared of the dark? Most of them, it will be the first time that they've ever experienced the nighttime. So I like to go and show them the different aspects of the night and to literally show darkness in a new light. So there's so much more to it as well than astronomy. I know a lot of you will have astronomy backgrounds, but the wildlife aspect for me is like what I absolutely love. So we've got a glowworm here. We have these in the UK. I think there's people around the world who have things like fireflies. They're in the same family, but these are beetles. They're not worms. So these literally glow like little fairies in the hedges, and they're incredibly rare now, sadly, because of light pollution. So being able to show them light at night, like a natural light at night like this, it just blows people's minds and it gives them a totally new perspective. And when we can explain to them, like, if we have light everywhere, these things are going to be lost and you won't see these things, that really is helpful as a tool to show people. I like to try and redefine darkness. So my experience is that most people who come to my sessions, be it stargazing, be it wildlife, be it anything, they genuinely like this is going to be the first time for a lot of them that they've ever experienced darkness. So I get people to arrive at sunset. I don't want them to arrive in the darkness because I do find that they do get overwhelmed by how dark it is straight away, and they get very, very fearful. So I like to sit with them through the changing hours, or the changing hours of the night. So we'll start at sunset. It does last, makes the sessions last quite a while sometimes, but we'll go through like blue hour, and they'll think that blue hour is dark. And then as the stars start to come out and their night vision has naturally kicked in, they haven't got to wait for 20 minutes after getting outside the car to actually be able to see things. They've let their eyesight naturally go, and they can't believe like how light it how much they can actually see and how much light they can actually see by allowing their night vision to go through the stages with the natural procession of the day. And it's about meeting these people where they are. So I find it really difficult sometimes to marry what people tell me and like what I think. So I have people who come to sessions and I get really disappointed because maybe it's patchy cloud and I'm like, oh, they're not going to be able to see like a fantastically clear sky. And I'm like, feel very pressured and I feel like I've got to fill all this space and like talk about things because they can't see that much. But then people are so happy just to be out at night and so excited. That alone is an adventure for them. And I remember one session where I had a couple who'd come to my session. This says a lot about my life, actually. I didn't realize that I'd put the session on February the 14th, and there was loads of couples at my event. And I was like, why are there so many couples at my at this event? Not realizing that it was Valentine's Day. And yeah, supposedly quite a romantic thing to do is go stargazing. So that was my first shock. And then yeah, I was like, God, I've got the added pressure now where these people are all here for like a romantic evening, and I can't really show them too many stars. But then the moon came out and they were so excited to see the moon. And there was this one couple in particular, and they said to me they'd never seen the moon. And I said, "What do you mean you've never seen the moon?" And they were like, "No, we've never seen the moon." And I thought they were just being silly. And I was like, "Oh, right, so you've never seen it like this, or you've never like stopped and like looked up." And they were like, "No, we've never seen it." And when I spoke to them, it's because they live in a city, they live in a really built up area, they get up in the morning, get in the car, go to work in an office, go from the office back to the car, back to their homes, and they don't go back outside again. So they had genuinely never seen the moon. So I was like, wow, this is mind blowing to me. Um, so I think it's really important to remember that I think we do put pressure on ourselves when you work in this kind of job, but you've got to have all these mind blowing facts and you've got to be able to explain absolutely everything that's up there. But for some people, just being there and just experiencing and letting that darkness bathe over them, that is enough of excitement. That's enough of a experience for them, which is really nice. And it brings me on to be able to speak about other things, about the importance of darkness on their health and how important it is to get that exposure to a natural nighttime, which most people will never ever consider. So being able to do that is a real privilege, and I'm learning more and more the longer that I do this, that it is a real privilege that we are able to show people these dark places and to be able to fight for darkness and to give darkness to showcase it on one hand, but also to defend it, to show people why it's important, because so many people haven't accessed it. And yeah, as I said, like the more and more I do this job, the longer I do it, the more I realize how few people have got access to this. So it really does drive it home for me when I'm doing these things, people's fear, working with people's fear, getting them through that so that they can experience these night skies. It is a real privilege what we do. So this is just another photo that I have to show you because it gets me very, very excited. And it's the world of UV and wildlife. So this is literally showing people the nighttime environment in a new light. So if you haven't done a UV session, so you get a UV torch and you go out and you look for things at night, it's fantastic and it's so good at getting people engaged because they have got that little bit of light, so they are looking around, but they are getting to see like all the wildlife, everything that comes out at night. This particular species is a leopard slug, so it's just a slug. Over in the UK, it's like our common garden slug. And when I tell people I'm going to show them a slug, they're like, "Oh, why are you going to show me a slug?" But these slugs are special slugs. I call them magic slugs because when you shine them under a UV torch, they are blue. But then if you stroke them, if you stroke the slugs, they turn green, like lime green. And then all of a sudden, all these people who thought slugs were disgusting run around looking for slugs. And then we end up with basically, I reckon when we leave that night, all the slugs must get together and be like, what happened? There was all these creatures that came out and tried to stroke us in the middle of the night. It was all very strange. So we've got like traumatized slugs. But it is fantastic as a tool to get people out to show them, that there is a whole new side to darkness. And there is literally a whole world out there. So that's lichen that it's on as well. So the lichen glows UV. Any geologists on the call? There's loads of rocks that glow different colors. I'm not a geologist, so don't ask me which rocks because I won't be able to tell you. But so many species glow. And it's just another way. So if you've got a session where the clouds are rolling in and you can't show them stars, you can break up your UV torches and show them stuff because there's always going to be stuff around. So this session, I think it was literally pouring, so I didn't have to cancel, which was really good. And that's a really important tool when you're in Wales because it does rain a lot here. I don't know if you know much about Wales. It rains a lot. So I'm not like some of you lucky people who have got really pristine clear skies all year round. But that's what makes my country so beautiful and green. So that's another one of my tips if you do want to do advocacy is find things that you can do when it's not so clear so you don't have to disappoint people as well. And that's where I'm going to leave it for now because I think we're going to speak amongst each other. I think I'm going to hand back to Callie. Um, is that okay, Callie?
Yeah, that's totally great. Here for it. We're gonna start the Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, please do pop them in the chat and then we'll just read them as they come along. But we do already have a few, so we're gonna get it going.
Oh,
All right, let me pin myself or I don't know. I don't want to pin. Oh, shoot. Please hold everybody. Zoom is a funny, funny thing. All right. What did I do? No,
Oh
remove
my
it.
gosh, that's 59 messages in the chat. Whoa, you guys have been busy. I could not see the chat when I was talking.
Right. All right, there we go. And then how do I double spotlight myself? Uh, oh my
Oh,
God.
people are just showing off now. I just seen that somebody has a scorpion hike. We don't have scorpions, but
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, the chat is popping off. So, and I think the slugs did it in for Patrick there. I saw some reaction going. So, all right. So, the first question I'm gonna ask is, what first inspired you to get involved in dark sky advocacy, and how did that passion lead you to where you are now?
I remember being I would have been about 6 years old, and I think it was Comet Hale Bop in 96, 97. And at the time, I still lived in Manchester, which, if you don't know, is a city in Anglesey. I lived on a council estate, which, if you guys have got Shameless over there, it was the Shameless estate, basically. And it was very light polluted, very lively council estate. But my dad was really, really into astronomy, and he really wanted, he used to listen to Sir Patrick Moore all the time, and he would always tell us about like all the things you could see in the night sky. And he really wanted to show us this comet, and then we went out to see it. He got us all like, I remember being in my pajamas with a big coat over my pajamas, and we went out and we walked to like the local like green. It was a park, a green patch. And we couldn't see it. And I remember lots of the estate kids being there and like, no, we couldn't see it. And I remember people being really disappointed and being like, oh, it was almost like it was fake news before fake news was like a thing, you know? And then we moved not long after that to Cymru, to Wales. We moved to a completely like polar opposite. Like I live on a small island now. It's very dark, and my first memory is it being super, super dark. Like I got out of the moving lorry and was like, where are we? Like I don't know what's going on. Um, and my dad then just like every clear night he would get us out, he would like show us the stars. And I loved that. I loved spending time with him. I loved those are like some of my like favorite memories of being with my dad. But then I remember moving for university. I moved to South Wales, and that was very light polluted. And I remember feeling really homesick, and I went out to look at the stars as like I'll just go and make myself feel better. I'll go and look at the stars, and I couldn't see them, and I felt a bit of like, bit of like a panic. I was like, oh my God, I can't see. That was like my calming technique, if you want, if you like. But after that, I realized that like that was the first time I really thought about light pollution and how the consequences of light pollution. Um, and it just so happened that the university I went to, they used to run astronomy courses, but the year I was there, that was the last year they could run because their observatory had become too light polluted. So that course had to be cut that year. So from that moment on, I kind of really got into like darkness and thinking about like how do we look after it. And it wasn't too long after that Wales got its first dark sky reserve, not too far from where I went to university. So that was like, yeah, it was Dark Sky International. And I was like, oh, someone's actually doing something about this. So that was really cool. Yeah, so thanks, Dark Sky International.
I love that. I love that. I'm telling you, when those IDSPs, International Dark Sky Places, pop up, it's just
Yeah.
like an inspiration. And then it just keeps going and building and expanding. And yeah, phenomenal, phenomenal. I will pop it in the link where you could check out International Dark Sky Places. If you aren't already aware, there are tons popping up almost like every day, I feel. So applaud to everybody who helps out with that. So wonderful work. Another question is, in All Through the Night, sounds like someone read your book. You
Oh, thanks.
shared you shared your love for the night sky and the importance of protecting it. What inspired you to write that book, and how do you hope to encourage people to take action with dark skies?
I started to write the book because I realized, like, as I was doing my job, it kind of started off as a diary where I was like, this job is so cool. I've done a lot of really bad jobs, like before this, like jobs I hated, and I would cry, like in work, like, I hate this job. And then I got this job, and I was like, this is so cool. Like, the stuff I get to do, like, it is. I'm beyond like privileged. Like, it's honestly the best job in the world. So I started to write like the experiences down, and I remember like being in Mayo in Western Island at a dark sky conference, and I was writing about like what I could see there. And I kind of thought that like maybe when I'm retired or something, this would be a book that I could publish. But as the Dark Skies, as interest in it sort of took off, I got more serious about writing it. So I thought, which light pollution is in my work, it's kind of like I feel like I'm playing whack-a-mole. So I feel like I sort out one area of bad lighting and then another one pops up. So I'm like, oh, I've got to go and sort that out. I've got to go and sort that out. And the change needs to come from the top. So we're doing all this really good work on the ground, but the change really needs to keep come from the top. And I just felt like I need to get the message out to like as many people as possible, which I can't do as just one person in Wales. So I thought by writing the book, we could try and reach as many people as possible. Did not expect in a million years that an actual like proper publisher would pick it up. But I just got very, very lucky. And that happened. So yeah, I got very lucky.
That is really, really awesome. I'm just now diving into like all of the dark sky and like just, night sky gosh, books. And there's so many to read and all on different like topics and aspects of the night. And I just like want them all, but I have to brace myself because then they'll just end up on my shelf and I don't read them. So I
You
need
need
to
to
just
download them into your brain, don't you? That's what I feel like sometimes. I wish I could just like absorb the info.
literally like put it under your pillow at night, sleep on it,
Yeah.
So
But that's so good, and it shows you how much the movement is gathering. Like because when I first started, there was barely any literature out there. So like trying to read, and when we're trying to affect policy and trying to affect change, not having that bank of literature there as like evidence does really start it didn't help basically. Like at the start they were like, well, it's just you talking about this, like where's it, where's all your proof, where's the evidence? But the more people who write about it and the more different aspects that we get of it, that all really really helps when it comes to convincing policymakers and lawmakers into actually getting, the really high level stuff in place. So well done everyone who's writing about it, whether it's published or not. It all needs to be out there.
honestly, and we have so many advocates doing such great work. So,
Yeah.
applaud. Just all the time, I'm applauding our advocates. So, but speaking of policy, it's so funny you mentioned that. Somebody did ask, where do you host your events and what outreaching do you do for them?
Lots of different things. So I try and think of all the different avenues. And also I don't know how it is for people over where you live, but in Wales we kind of like have a dark sky season, which is sort of like we're just getting into the start of it now. So end of September through to like early March, because then we don't really get any darkness because we're that far north. So for summer it doesn't really get very dark. So I do a lot of wildlife-based stuff in the summer months. So looking at nocturnal wildlife, doing barn owl walks, bat walks, looking for glowworms. We've done night swimming, night kayaking. We're going to do night pack rafting, which is this new thing I didn't even know, where you sail, you paddle. I don't, it's not the technical term. You paddle around in a little boat and then you can pack your boat down and then you can go for a hike to another lake and you can paddle about a bit more. Um, and then we do like I do astronomy, so I'm an amateur astronomer. I am not like by any means like a trained astronomer, but I've got a mobile observatory, which is a van filled with telescopes. So I can drive out to our remote communities and one, show them what's on their doorstep, but two, try and get people engaged from an astrotourism like perspective, get people in. I get people coming from like far and wide. Like I've had people travel like 7 hours to get to one of our sessions because that's how far people have to go to get to a dark place. So night hikes, incredibly popular. People love night hikes, and I think that's because people want to experience the night. They are too scared to do it by themselves. So by going out with a group and having someone there who knows what they're talking about and to keep them safe, they love it. So we have things called, I don't know if you do in other places, but we have bothies, I'm sure you do as well. These are like, or buffins, they're like little stone cottages that are there as like refuges. So people who are walking, so we like will hike out to one of those on our furthest one. It's a 5 mile hike in the night. We get there, we have like a log fire. We like talk about like the dark. I'll have telescopes and stuff set up, and then we'll hike back again. And that's like the most popular event. I'm always like absolutely inundated. I can't get enough staff to like run that event. So night hikes hugely popular.
Wow, that is really incredible. And honestly, I feel like these night hikes are popping up more and more and more. Because I know Diana in Serbia is also doing quite a few night hikes as well. And I mean, everyone wants to do them. Everyone's now like more encouraged to go out at night, be familiar with the night, like, like you were saying, just kind of deconstruct those perceptions of the night being spooky and all of that. So I love that people are, getting out there. So I
Yeah. Although
feel
people do immediately, as we get to a campfire, they're like, oh, should we tell ghost stories? And I'm like, no, no ghost stories. Stop it. I don't want to know. Don't
exactly
scare
ruins the
me.
vibe. So yeah, not what we're going for. So
Yeah.
fair enough. That is awesome. Speaking of walks and hikes, somebody asked, what are your favorite times of year to do night star slash UV walks?
For UV walks this time of year is autumn because you get all the fungi mushrooms in the UK, and we've got lots of glowing mushrooms. Um, and that's really good. I love doing it at this time of year. But for the night hikes, sort of like February, mid-February, it's when we get like our really like it's clear, it's cold. So like the cold, you get more stable atmosphere. The stars like seem so much brighter. They seem really twinkly. And that's when I do my Welsh dark sky. It's Welsh dark sky week, but it's not really a week. It's more like an entire month of events. But dark sky month didn't sound as catchy as dark sky week. But yeah, and I think that's a nice time of year as well because in the UK we've just had like Christmas, we've had like New Year, everyone's a bit depressed going into New Year. And then they're like, we've got nothing to look forward to. So then we do like the dark sky stuff in February when there's nothing else really going on bar Valentine's Day, which always catches always catches me out.
All right. I like that. That's really good to know. I wouldn't have thought February. I was thinking like December or something. So,
Yeah. December's just so busy in the UK. Like everyone, we get like Christmas fever where everyone's just nuts for a
yeah.
whole month of just Christmas. Yeah, I think most of the British population is drunk for the entirety of December. Not a
Sounds
good
like
idea.
oh my gosh, sounds very festive.
So festive.
Awesome, awesome. Charlotte threw a laughing emoji. So I'm loving these reactions, everybody. They're great. Oh my gosh. So we have, oh my goodness, what other questions? So someone asked, you've played a key role in protecting some of the whale's most treasured dark sky areas. Could you share a memorable moment from your conservation work that really stuck with you?
Oh, that's really, really tricky. Um, I think probably the most memorable moments have been like this year actually. I feel like I finally got to a point where the people at the top, so like Welsh government, are starting to listen to me. So they've adopted this planning guidance which is applicable across Wales to protect dark skies. And that's when I was like, oh yeah, we've got this really cool document. It looks really good. It's got loads of really like amazing astrophotography in it. And that was when I was just like, yeah, people are actually listening now and people are actually taking it seriously. And it don't feel like it's just me on my own here anymore. Like it's actually being adopted and put into different management plans and our national parks. I guess it's the equivalent of like the National Park Service or like the Nature Service. They've started to put it into their management plans. So at first I felt like if I take my foot off the gas at all, like we're gonna lose momentum. So for the first few years, I was just like flat out like scared if I took a day off, it was all gonna just start like crumbling by me. But now I do feel like okay, other people know what to do now. So I feel like that we've reached like a pinnacle moment now where I think it's just gonna keep growing, which is good. Not that I'm gonna take my foot off the gas, but still I do feel like it wouldn't fall apart now so much.
Thank gosh. It's less on you, and more of like a
Yeah,
collective. Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely.
that's really important. And how do you balance like keeping the foot on the gas but also not like being burnt out? How do you balance that?
It's really hard and I don't, to be very honest. Like I am, that's something I'm learning. Yeah, I am having to learn it. And it really shows now because I used to be able to just do like night after night and like not really feel like tired or anything. But now I do feel like, oh, I'm getting a little bit sleepy now and again. So I do have to like learn. But that's where like, it was such a relief that, the government has started to take it on board and we are starting to see that progress. I do feel like I can ease off and not have to be so frantic and do because a lot of advocates we're wearing so many hats. It's not just like astronomy. It's all of it. It's policy. It's like doing the outreach, doing speaking to government, doing the wildlife aspects of it. Like I have people come into my front door because they know who I am, like in the communities, and they're like, "Oh, I've got a street light," and then like it's Sunday, I'm having my dinner, and you've come to my house to tell me about a street light, which is fine, but it's a lot, isn't it, as well? So I think it is really important for advocates to just be like, you can't do it all. I know it's really tempting to, um, but yeah, we really are like stronger together. And as well, like you have to recognize as well, I think that we are standing on the shoulders of the people who came first. So I always really want to say like thanks to people who, came before us. So like, we had John Barrentine, who was a really big part of Dark Sky International for years, like the people who founded Dark Sky International. There was a really key personality in the UK called Bob Misen, who we sadly lost 2 years ago. And he'd done dark sky advocacy for since the 1980s. Like he was an absolute like legend. So, it's just looking back at the work that's gone before, and I'm just like one little jigsaw piece in this massive puzzle that we're all trying to put together, but we've all got that little role to play. So, yeah, it's about trying to see that bigger picture, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the way that you're naming, all these really influential people, who have came before us, you're going to be on that list as, Dark Skies continues to grow. So that is really inspiring for sure.
My head, no, Callum, I won't get out of the room. My head will grow too much.
Oh, okay, okay. I won't mention it again. So awesome, awesome. And speaking of government, we did have a question about speaking of light and safety, do you have any tools or approaches you found helpful for starting conversations with like law enforcement who see lighting as a solution rather than just a temporary fix?
Yeah, it's that's like the trickiest one because like trying to get something that's been drilled into like law enforcement for so many years. And it's the same over in the UK. They still preach that like, brighter the lighter, the better. But the best thing you can do really is just try and look at case studies around the world if there's not any around near you. So we have done like major retrofitting projects in the UK. So that's probably one of the pivotal points as well, actually, was the first time a really big place let me do a retrofit, like a whole like retrofit, and they were really scared because it was a national outdoor centre. So they had people there all day, every day, 365 days a year, members of the public. They were scared of people falling, trips. Um, they were a listed building as well, so like conservation in the actual building itself was protected, so you couldn't just like go in and change things. It had to all go through the proper process. And they were so scared for the lighting retrofit at first because they always got complaints about their lighting. And I said, well, if everyone's complaining about it anyway, I'm not going to make it any worse, hopefully. And they did, they let us, it was over COVID actually. They were like, well, no one's here for COVID, so we will trial it. So we did a trial and that went so well. It was with Kerem from Dark Sourced. He did a really good job. He's so good as well at putting people at ease. And I think that's another point for advocates is to try and find like, we can't be expert at everything. I know my strengths. I know my strengths is talking to communities. I know my strengths is like the wildlife and ecology stuff. But like Kerem, like he is a lighting expert, so he can talk to like lighting engineers. He can talk on their level. He's got like the math brain that I don't have. So finding those people who can communicate to the right people as well is really, really essential. So having Kerem there to be able to do that was really good. And now that building's been lit like that for over 4 years. They haven't had a single incident. They're really happy. They say it feels much safer. So being able to say to the police or like the law enforcers and say, like, we've got this case study essentially where nothing's gone wrong. They're all very happy with how it is. I think it's about showing them that there is a better way to do it and that we're not trying to take light away. It's always really important to say that we're not, dark skies doesn't mean no lights. We're actually talking about better design. And I actually lay this down to like the lighting companies and say, like, this is a challenge, this is about good design. Go and design better lighting, make it more beautiful, make it better for everybody. And they're like, okay, yeah, you don't, I think it's important we don't go in and chastise and say you're doing it wrong because everyone's been doing it wrong because we thought that was best. Nobody does it on purpose. to be wrong. So going in as a challenge and being like, yeah, there is a better way to do it. There's opportunity here for businesses. Like I'm still yet to find a business that nails like dark sky lighting for like all varieties, like domestic, like what's the word in English? Like big businesses like warehouses and stuff. So yeah, there's still the space there for a business to really make it into an opportunity as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Yeah. I'm dealing with some neighborhood lighting issues, as I'm sure we all are. And I'm trying really hard not to like shout in the email. I'm just like, please help me. So, but yeah, keeping that top of mind is just like calm, cool, collected, more from
Sometimes I have to go and put it in a draft email, and then I have to go back a few hours later and I'm like, delete the exclamation marks. And yeah.
literally, literally. So glad to hear I'm not the only one. So, um, another question we had was, you've seen firsthand how light pollution impacts wildlife and people. What gives you hope about the future of our night skies in terms of like wildlife conservation and everything?
Like all the people who are on this call, like I thought we'd have like 8 people. No offense to you, Callie, but I was like, who's for me, this is like late in the evening. So I'm like, who's gonna come along like in the evening and listen to me? But then seeing all these people here who like care enough to like take time out of their day to like come and like you're all I just, it's like going back to that. We're all like a little puzzle piece, aren't we, in this big jigsaw? And we talk to so many people, and those people go out and talk to people. Then it's this big like ripple effect, isn't it? So that is what gives me hope. It's always so nice. Like I used to go into like community halls, and I'd be like, "Who knows about light pollution?" And no one would raise their hand up. And now I go in and I talk to people, and I'm like, "Who's heard of light pollution?" And if one of those people puts their hands up, I'm like, "Yes, somebody's spoken about it to somebody, and it's getting through." But I'm getting to the point now where they'll all say, "Oh, we know about light pollution," and I'll be like, "Great, I'll just go home then. I don't have to tell you anything." But I don't. I do tell them. But yeah, that is what gives me hope. Out there, it is becoming more and more of a recognized issue, and it is being seen as an emerging ecological threat. And it does help as well. Like when I first started this work, a lot of the ecology literature was around like sea turtles, which is great, but not everyone has sea turtles and it affects so much more. So yeah, seeing there's so much more of a range of research out there now and scientific evidence that's really, really helpful and does make me feel a lot better.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think everyone thinks of sea turtles first. I don't know why. Those little
Because
guys.
they're cute, aren't
Yeah,
they? They are cute. I know, but we don't have sea turtles here, so I can't use them as like a piece of evidence in Wales. Although
right.
because of climate change, we are starting to get sea turtles, but that's beside the point. We won't go down that road right now.
Oh my gosh, right? I was trying to find in the Capture the Dark, there was the image of the winner with the scorpion under
Oh,
you,
that's
right?
cool. Yeah.
Oh, and it was beautiful. And I don't know why I cannot find it. It must be stuck. But anywho, I'm sure we've all seen it, But honestly, like just seeing how many different types of wildlife are active at night, and kind of like how their habits are impacted by
Yeah.
artificial light, and they rely on the navigation of the stars with dung beetles. I am so stuck on dung beetles. I love those little guys.
That's it's so cool, isn't it? And that's what's really exciting about dark skies and ecology from that perspective, because usually when, someone like me, I'm a younger person in ecology, so I'm coming in after like, this is decades and decades of learning, like hundreds of years of learning. Ecology's got so many fields that I've got hundreds of years of learning. But light pollution is such a new field. It feels very exciting. And there's so many questions and there's such a buzz about it when people start to think about it because there's not many things that have been left unstudied. So they're like, wow, okay, this is opening up like so many different things. And especially like UV, like the UV field, to my knowledge, hasn't really got much beyond does it glow? So I love the fact that they're scientists. I imagine them there in their white coats with like glasses with a UV torch, just bringing in different species. Like, does it glow? Yes, it does. Tick that one off. Does it glow? No, that one can go outside. And it's just like they're just finding out like all these different species. They don't know why a lot of them glow. So that's the next question is like, why do these species glow? I just think it's so cool. But light pollution, it's so important for from a conservation perspective because it reminds us that we see the world through such human eyes. Obviously, we're human, so we visualize the world the way we do. We sense the world that we do. But wildlife, their senses are completely different, and they might well, a lot of them do see the world completely different to us, or they sense the world completely different to us. So birds can see the UV spectrum and they can see like the magnetosphere and they can see like God knows what they can see when they look up to the night sky. So what are we blocking with light? Because we just think of our own selves as humans. We can't see in the dark, so we put light up. But what worlds are we blocking? And what cues are we blocking by having light there? And I just think it opens up, it forces us to think in a different way, which is really cool.
I agree. Yeah, that was really awesome, and I'll have to watch that back. Because it almost sounds like it should be put into a documentary, which I can't wait. I'm sure it's going to be coming out. But somebody, we have questions like flooding in last minute, but and I want to make sure we get through them. Can you repeat the name and location of where you're doing your advocacy work now, and as well as the Dark Sky Park in Wales? Sarah, I think that's what you mean, the one in Wales. Uh,
We've actually got in Wales the highest percentage of protected dark skies of anywhere in the world. So we've got two reserves, we've got a park, we've got two dark sky communities, and a sanctuary, which I think is pretty good going for a small country. So I'm in Eryri, which is also known as Snowdonia National Park. We've got Banau Brycheiniog or the Brecon Beacons. We've got Ynys Enlli, which is the sanctuary. We've got Gower, Preston and Norton are the two communities. And we've got the Dark Sky Park in Elan Valley. And there's so many places. One of the challenges actually that I was going to put to Dark Sky International is that we have places that are dark, but they don't fit the requirements of a dark sky place. So maybe they're not big enough, or they're not publicly owned, or they're not completely privately owned. And I know that's something you guys are like looking at as a organization. But yeah, that's one of the things that I am scared of because there is technically no laws yet to protect places from light pollution. So if they can't get these designations, that's the only weapon we have at the moment. It's the only tool we've got to protect these places. So I am trying to get our government to think about maybe creating an ecological reserve from a darkness perspective as like another layer. Just want to get all the layers of protection in there for everywhere. But that's a very long-winded answer to Eryri National Park. Yeah, that's my main one.
I love it. And I'm so glad you said it yourself because I was on Google, like, how do you pronounce? So so
It's Welsh is phonetic, so it's all the soft sounds. So once you know that, it makes it loads easier.
oh
So
well, all right, that's a good beginning. So and
yeah.
I'll keep that Lord D. Yeah, I'm a little too harsh with my the way I pronounce things. So but somebody else asked, Dawn specifically, what is a common challenge or barrier you have encountered when it comes to helping folks overcome their fear of the dark? And how did you engage with them on this?
Where it comes from, probably a lot of it is women, and I would say like older women as well, because they're very, very nervous because they've grown up in a society that was a lot more fearful and a lot more strict with their girls and women. So I actually one of my favorite groups that I took out actually was a group we've got a organization called the WI or the Women's Institute in the UK. I don't know if it exists in like Europe and America, but basically these are ladies who they're basically a mafia. So they get together, they do knitting and they do crafting and they make jam and they make cakes and things, but they run their communities. Like you don't mess with the WI. So they asked me to do a walk for them and I was like, yeah, sure. They're usually retired. So I think, 60s, 70s, 80-year-olds. And I was like, sure, we can do a walk. And I thought maybe like 10 of them would come out, but we ended up with like 42 women and they were so excited. And these were all women who were like, over the age of 60 and it was their first time out in the nighttime. So they were so excited and I loved that. But yeah, the main fears for them was just what's been drilled into them, just that it never ever goes any further then. It's just not safe. But when you take that conversation that next step and you go further and you give it a name to be like, well, actually, it's not that the dark's not going to hurt you, it's people. And I always say that I am quite lucky as well because living in a rural area, I am much safer because I'm anonymous in the dark. I live in a dark place. So if I've got a head torch on and I'm walking around, you can't see who I am. You can't see that I'm a woman. You can't see, how, well, you could probably figure out roughly how tall I am. You can't see if I'm carrying like a handbag or anything. But if I'm in a town or a city and I'm walking down a street, I feel so exposed because you're literally being put under a spotlight. You can see me from so far away that I'm on my own. You can see that I'm a woman. You can see if I've got a handbag or not. So like once they realize that like darkness is actually like a cloak, it's almost like a cloak of safety in these places where you can be anonymous and you can just like exist. And I think some of these women as well found it really freeing. Like you can't be seen. So like keeping up appearances, like having to look a certain way. Whereas like in the dark, no one can see you. So they're like, oh, can just let it all hang out. I'm fine. Got messy hair, got like, and that's really, really empowering for them as well. So I love that. I love that session. I'm gonna go back and do it again, actually, thinking about it.
That's really awesome. I was actually going to ask if they continued on the walks or not. So,
And yeah, they have done. Yeah, they do it themselves, and they do like to have like different guides and stuff. We can show them different things, so that's really, really cool as well.
yeah, that's really, really awesome. Speaking of your events and, the walks that you do and outreach events, someone asked, I think it was Scott, can't remember, how do you finance your events and ensure safety for the participants?
How do I finance them?
Yeah, I get
Yeah.
if you do.
Um, so it's basically just staff time. There's not a lot of money involved because the national parks are free here, so there's never any cost associated. It's getting people to places. So sometimes we will have to fork out for like a minibus or whatever, but we do get funding. So I get funding through like our government. We have government grants that fund my job. And then what was the other question? Safety.
Yes.
Yeah. So safety, I will always do a recce, so I'll always go and do the hike in the daytime, first of all. Make sure it's safe for people. I will like look at I grade my walks as well so that people know like if there's a hard walk or a easier walk because some paths are easier than others. I don't take anyone anywhere dangerous where there's any possibility that they could like fall down a cliff edge or anything anything like that. And then I really reduce like my ratio so I bring in more staff. So it's usually 1 to 8 for walking, but we'll bring in like a lot more staff so we've got a good ratio. um we've all got head torches. I give people head torches. We're all first aid trained to like the highest level, so we're all like emergency first aid trained. So I literally have like tourniquets and stuff. God, I hope I never have to use one of those, but like we're all like extremely trained for safety. And it's not like, the UK national parks are pretty tame compared to like some of the American ones. Like we don't have bears or wolves or anything like that. So it is relatively it's pretty safe, really. And then it's just a case of the weather. So yeah, the weather. If there's a weather warning, we won't go out. But apart from that, yeah, we have walkie-talkies as well, so we can keep an eye on the group. And then we've got enough staff that if somebody does have an emergency, we've got people we can take them down the mountain, and people stay with the group as well. So just try and just throw people at it, basically. More people.
I love that. That is awesome and very insightful for anyone who is wanting to try and, do their own night walks, brilliant to walk in the during the day before you do the nighttime one. I think a lot of photographers do that as well. They kind of like
It's
scope out
it's
there.
good practice, absolutely, to do that. And I think as well, if you've got people who are, you'll get a vibe for who's coming on your walk, and if they're quite nervous, I will start my walks at twilight so they at least can see the environment, and then I let it get dark around them because they've already walked the path once then, and they kind of like know what to expect on the way down, which is helpful, I think, for people.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And last but not least, one more question before we break out into breakout rooms. Gosh. Oh, I
Which
just
to
right. For people who are new to dark sky preservation, what's one simple change they can make to help protect the night?
Mm, I would say look at the lighting on your own home. and talk to your neighbors. That's a good place to start. Is start with your neighbors if you're in good terms. Because people in glass houses can't throw stones or shouldn't throw stones. So if you've got bad lights on your house, you can't really go around telling people to change your lights. So I think, yeah, don't overestimate the power of community. So if you've got like a good like street or good neighbors you can talk to, get them on board and just start from there. Really, it might snowball. We've got some communities who started out as one or two, and now we've got like hundreds of people in that community who are like, yeah, we're all gonna get involved. So it's people are real passionate about it. It's so good.
Yeah, I've got to agree. I mean, I reached out to my neighborhood Facebook group this morning and I thought no one was going to have any qualms about the lighting, but I found quite a few. So very excited. Everyone has opinions.
They
So
do.
yeah, I love that. And with that, I'm going to conclude our Q&A. Thank you so much, Danny, for your insightful presentation and, leading the way for our advocates, but also, just dark sky conservation in general. It's super inspiring, and I can't wait to see even more communities pop up in Wales. So you're doing fantastic work. Um,
Thanks so much, Ali.
of course.